Steve Ballmer is here, USAFacts founder and former CEO of Microsoft. Good morning to you, Steve. So as you made your way around Washington with officials and other politicians and your facts, your latest, what was the thing you were trying to impress upon them? And what were the facts, if you will, that you were pointing out this time?
Yeah, we spent some time. We've just finished our annual report for government in America, state, local, federal. And I think the number one thing we were trying to get people to understand is it's good to use the history of what happened as recorded by our government as part of policy making. And, at least in my opinion, every new bill that passes should have some key metrics that people are going to use and maintain and deliver in real time. You know, how are we going to assess the IRA or the infrastructure bill or what happened with ARP or CHIPS unless we're getting data back real time the way you would in a business? I just don't know how people make decisions, and we were really trying to push that point by highlighting that, you know, what we have for data, in some cases, how old it is.
I know you like to stay apolitical with the data, but I'm curious, of the new pieces of information, was there any piece that you think that is vastly misunderstood either by the public or officials in Washington, and maybe even yourself prior to looking at it and going, you know what, I never really thought that that was the case?
Yeah, I think I'm going to focus on one. I might say budget and immigration, but at least on budget, you know, we had this surge. We're at about $5.1 trillion pre the pandemic. We jumped way up to over $7 trillion for 2 years. We came back down to $6.4 trillion. But if you actually look at all of the things that are now going away, the stepped-up SNAP benefit, the child tax credit, when we reported in 2022 fiscal year, we still had $500 billion for college debt forgiveness. But there'll be almost $800 billion that come back. Now, new things have been approved, but we're getting back to within 600 or 700 billion compared to the 5.1 billion pre-pandemic, which I go, whoo! I'm very glad. I am partisan, if you will, that we not get into more and more debt.
Well, you could write a check for that, Steve.
Well, let me ask you about that, because we had Tim Scott on the broadcast earlier this week, and we talked about, in his view, the need to lower taxes, and his view that that would raise revenues, arguably offsetting any of those tax cuts, if you will, or the lost revenue that would come from that. Is that the case? You've looked at these numbers over the years. You know, a lot of people say we need to raise taxes. Other people say we need to lower taxes. What do you think that the real outcome of all this has been?
Okay, I won't give any particular forecast. That's not our game. We're not economists. We try to stick to what happened. But if you look at what has happened in the past, our tax revenues have, by and large, with the exception of a few big tax cuts, have been on a long, gradual upward slope in terms of total taxes collected. Who cares what tax rates are? It's all about taxes collected. So no matter who's in office, how people are dealing with things, there's generally been over time a slow upward trend. Now, what does that say to
revenues.
do? Exactly. Collected revenues, not tax rates, but collected revenues. And, you know, is there elasticity? Would tax revenue really pop back? I don't know. The gradual trend is that things just keep going up and up and up. If I was a businessman and I looked at that line, I would say, don't screw with it, because anything we do isn't likely to move that very much. But I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. I'm not an economist. So just one man's opinion looking at the history.
Steve, the best way to look at it, isn't it, as a percentage of GDP, the tax, how much we spend, how much the government spends as a percentage of GDP, and it's historically been 18 to 19%. We're back to 23%, I think, or something right now. Do you think you think that on a nonpartisan way that the entire world could agree that there is a number that would hurt private sector growth? For example, don't you think 30% is too much as far as what the government's spending in terms of total GDP? And probably 18 or 19 we should probably strive for that. That doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to shoot for.
I'd make 3 quick points. Mm-hmm. Number one, are we going to talk about the expenses or are we going to talk about the deficit? I think people often latch on to expenses. I happen to be a deficit hound. Number 2, like I said, there is a basic built-in shrinkage in government spending coming with the expiration of many things that were done for COVID. It will help reduce the number. Number 3.
Will it get us back to 18 to 19%, Steve?
It'll get us back much closer. It won't get us all the way back down to 18 or 19%. But if you really wanted to get to 18 or 19%, we're going to have to touch Social Security, Medicare. Those are the 2 biggest spend categories out there. And if you look at it in the long run, as our population ages, our population only grew about 1.3 million people last year, almost the slowest it's ever grown. And 1 million of that came from immigration. So depending on what immigration policy is and how that affects GDP, this government spend, because of Social Security and Medicare, will increase as a percentage of GDP unless we have more people in the country.
Steve, I want to switch gears on you and talk about AI, which, of course, was the other big topic in Washington this week. It's become, I think, the big topic everywhere in the world for at least the last year, given the success of OpenAI, its partnership with your former employer, Microsoft. Satya Nadella was also in Washington this week. Your sense of lawmakers' understanding of AI, the issues involved, and perhaps the dangers. Are you on the optimistic side? Are you on the negative side? And what are you telling them?
I am excited that lawmakers want to learn. I am glad that there was the conference that happened a couple days ago. We happened to see amongst both Democrats and Republicans. We saw Senator Schumer yesterday. Salute him for pulling things together. Do people really understand? I'm not even sure in some cases the full breadth of this, and I think the tech CEOs will admit this. Where will all of this go? What I would say is, for example, super tough to regulate. Super tough to regulate. So the question is, what kind of responsibility do you force onto the companies in terms of how they think things through? And, I was talking to one senator yesterday, and he said, we're just going to get more, people are going to get more tribalized. They're going to just see things that are interesting, on their feed. I pointed to him on TV news channels. People pick what's interesting in them, too. It's just an inevitability, and we're going to have to try to deal with that as best we can. Now, that said, man, I'm totally just jumping up and down out of my chair about what's possible with AI. Every one of the cool scenarios we were talking about when I was CEO at Microsoft, those things can happen now. Get me ready for my trip to Europe. Pull it all together. I'm pumped beyond belief.